UG channel, Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Is your usual suspect. It's 3 minutes to the top of the hour of 10 a.m. Apologies for the lateness. Every time I prepared to go on set, I got an important phone call that I could not postpone. So I had to get through those morning calls. But I'm glad to be here on this beautiful Tuesday morning. Like I said yesterday, apologies for missing yesterday's morning broadcast. It was all due to power challenges, which still persist. We're still trying to have that situation resolved, although still to no success. We've had to improvise temporary solutions to get through this period to make sure that our engagement is not, continuously hampered. And I hope that remains to be the case, or that will remain the case going forward. Jevariko Pedri, how are you doing, my brother? Good morning. How is Spain this beautiful morning? Is it as cold? I've seen people from England complain about the coldness. They're saying it's too cold as winter starts. Oliotia, Jendi Sevo, Oliotia Sevo. What's the Otia? Very exciting there, Pedri. I don't know if he's using Chat GPT or he's using Gemini or he's using OpenAI or Copilot, whatever he is using to help his translations, or it is genuinely his from his lessons from Luganda. It is quite very thrilling to see somebody from the far Europe speaking our domestic language. So it's really good. This beautiful morning, we'll be talking about the UEFA Champions League. As we all know, match day 5 of the UEFA Champions League does return. We have this week we have a top of the table clash in as far as the Champions League is concerned. That's between Bayern Munich and Arsenal. But before we get to that party on Wednesday, we will have an engagement on Tuesday, which is today, where Barcelona up against Chelsea. And then, of course, we have another tough fixture, possibly, I think it comes on Wednesday, when Atletico Madrid take on Inter Milan. We also have a game between Paris Saint-Germain and Tottenham Hotspur. We remember that these two played in the UEFA Super Cup, and PSG came out triumphant. So we'll be digesting that and everything in that regard. What's your prediction, Barcelona versus Chelsea? I mean, I need to sort of look at the context of within which Barcelona do come in this game, are quite enthusiastic about themselves following that victory against Athletic Bilbao over the weekend. And given the kind of team that I'm sure they are able to assemble with Frankie de Jong back fully fit, I think we're going to enjoy that midfield battle between Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo versus Fermin Lopez and Frankie de Jong. I do suspect, I do not know, maybe there could be a shift of tactics, but I sort of think that we could see Rachel James being played in midfield. Obunyogovu bunyogoga nga bwekiri munsi endala. Yeah. Pedri, they are saying it is as cold in Spain as it is elsewhere in Europe. So, but we wish that we pray that you come out in one piece. I think you're more accustomed to that. Speaking of the coldness, I was watching an interview by Sadio Mane's interview with Rio Ferdinand, and he spoke about January 2011 when he first traveled to France, and he literally froze. He could no longer feel his fingers and stuff like that, and he was excused by the manager from training because, anyways, it's usually an environmental culture hit, especially when you travel to Europe or USA, Canada, and whichever other countries there could be during winter. I think the best time to go there is to go there during summer, transition yourself into spring, and then eventually into winter. Of course, it will be a harsh reality going through it, but at least that way you will have transitioned through it a bit by bit. For us, it continues to be quite sunny in and around Kampala. It does rain in some parts of the country, depending on how it chooses. So we are in a rainy season, but it's not the usual rainy season where it rains almost every day. It rains today and then it disappears for a couple of days like that. So that's how I'll say it. Read the comment above. Frankie De Jong was suspended for Bilbao, not injured. Yes, he was suspended, but he had a knock. Last I checked. Oh yeah, I watched it as well. Yeah, you're making reference to the Sadio Mane interview. So, in regards to Barcelona, like I said, I think I for one am looking forward to that midfield. And like I was saying, whereas we do expect the battle to be between Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo versus Fermin Lopez and Frankie De Jong in the absence of the Barcelona maestro in Pedri. I think I wouldn't be surprised one bit if Enzo Maresca chooses to pull Richard James from right back and puts him in midfield, should he be available to start this fixture. But he did suffer a knock in that weekend victory against Burnley. So I do not know his availability. But should there be an opportunity that he's available, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes the double pivot of Moises Caicedo alongside Richie James with Enzo Fernandez playing sort of ahead of them. Or alternatively, it could be Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, and Andre Santos in that midfield. Because one, Enzo Maresca ought to know, or he will know pretty well, that Barcelona going to dominate possession. They're very, very capable of that. Win or lose, oftentimes the one thing that Barcelona are good at is dominating possession. So will be interesting to see how they go about things in that regard. Then Joao Pedro, Pedro Neto, Alejandro Garnacho, and Liam Delap, out of those four, three could lead the front, because I'm thinking he's going to go with a bit of a conservative midfield, because you are playing with, let's say, Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, alongside and ahead of them Pedro Neto, Joao Pedro, and Alejandro Garnacho plus Liam Delap. It sort of leaves you a bit exposed, It would sort of leave you a bit exposed for Chelsea side, especially when you're going to face Barcelona, who we know are very, very athletic. And we could see the return of Lamine Yamal. So that in itself would necessitate that, because Alejandro Garnacho will not do a lot to help Marco Cucurella do a lot of defensive work. So that means you need to staff perhaps the midfield to have a player drift off to the left wing to try and help neutralize the Lamine Yamal threat. And same applies on the other side where Ferran Torres usually goes through. Of course, when your centre backs have to deal with a towering Robert Lewandowski, then it could be a Marcus Rashford, on his return to England. And I was reading some comments by Hansi Flick saying, or speaking of how impressed he's been to have Marcus Rashford within his team, and really, really interesting stuff. Pedri says Barcelona midfield will be Frankie De Jong, Eric Garcia, Fermin Lopez as a double pivot, Fermin above them, and then Ferran Torres, Robert Lewandowski, and Lamine Yamal. It will be a 4-2-3-1 kind of system. That's how he's chosen to define it. Not that I'm surprised or that I'm going to disagree, but in his submission, Pedri does omit Dani Olmo from starting in that game. Now, of course, between him and I know that all lineups are a possibility in regards to how Barcelona set up. It is at the discretion of Hansi Flick to decide who he sets up in goal. Then Wojciech Szczesny, possibly goal. And then do you get Wojciech Szczesny, or we do get Joan Garcia? Alejandro Balde or Alejandro Balde, Pau Kubasi, Ronald Araujo, the captain there, Jules Koundé. And, I think that in itself, I'm like I've already said, I'm not too convinced about this Barcelona defense, but it's what they do from midfield and going forward that is the biggest threat that then makes their defense look perhaps sometimes just as good, But predominantly it's what they do around in and around that area. On the side of Chelsea, when it comes to their backline, in the absence of Richie James with his knock, you have Malo Gusto, you'd have Wesley Fofana alongside Trevor Chaloba and Marco Correa to the left, and Robert Sanchez in goal because he's a mainstay. Now, again, when you look at Chelsea defenders, that's the best duo that they currently have available in the absence of Levi Colwill. Because I do not think that Jorel Hato has had a good start to his Chelsea career. Not that he's played very consistently to try and prove himself and acclimatize to the new environment, but also Tosin Aderabio, sometimes you feel for a player of his experience at the age of 28 years, he's a bit lucky. He falls oftentimes short. And then you look at Joshua Achepong, he's still quite a young defender. You look at Not Badiashile, sometimes he's capable of those, sort of premature errors. So Chelsea's best, option lies with Wesley Fofana and Trevor Chaloba in that backline. But also, we know Enzo Maresca to be good at cutting and chopping when it comes to his starting 11. At Chelsea, have made the most changes across the Premier League when it comes to tinkering with their starting 11, and something like that. So it's something that you ought to bear in mind. Danny Olmo isn't worthy to start in such a game. That's Pedri saying he's not worthy to start in such a game. Danny Olmo does better in a very complicated game where the opposition is defending for the whole game, like Rayo Vallecano. Chelsea game is a fast game. He adds on that Fermin Lopez is better for pressing and shooting, plus he is on form. Thank you so much, Pedri, for those wonderful insights on Barcelona. We can see Vangri Emaliki. Is it Vangri Emaliki or Van? Or allow me call you Van. Hi, Van. We got Romano Lukaku talking about football analysis. Who is Romano Lukaku? Good to have you on the broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if you're new here. But it's a pleasure to have you around. And thank you for joining the platform. So, again, I'll simply say that let's wait and see whatever the starting 11 Hansi Flick chooses to go with. But the thing about Chelsea is that I don't know. I think we lack a confidence in what Chelsea can consistently do. On a given day, they're a very good team that are capable of beating up against anybody, be it in the Premier League, be it in Europe. In any case, the FIFA Club World Cup final over there in the United States of America during the course of the summer is evidence to that. How they dismissed PSG, beating them by 3-0. That in itself is what shows you their capabilities. But when you move back to the Premier League per se, for example, they've lost to Man United, but then they beat up against Liverpool. Not that Liverpool were in any better form or shape, and they have another huge test over the weekend where they, entertain Arsenal at Stamford Bridge. But before we get to that, the point is that we've seen them lose 3-1 against Brighton. We've seen them draw 2-2 against Brentford. We've seen them lose to Sunderland by 2-1. So, whereas they're a very, very good team, consistently you struggle to see how they are capable of keeping up that sort of level of momentum. But speaking of Chelsea, they have welcomed back Cole Palmer back in training. I do not know if he will be fully fit enough to make today's squad, but we will see depending on what they name out. So you say, okay, it's just a joke, bro. Sorry if you mind. No. I understood the joke for what it was. In any case, I was about to ask, are you trying to mean that I look like Romelu Lukaku? But thank you so much, Van, for your submission. We have Dick Okwi. Is it Okwi? Dick Okwi. Hi, how are you doing, my brother? Hey. Cole Palmer broke his toe. I mean, that was the reported case, but I do not think he actually broke his toe. I do not want to believe that because he's back in training. He's back in Chelsea training. Now, tell me what kind of human being breaks a toe and in a space of a week, they are back in full training? You know, Pedri Bola says predict Chelsea versus Barcelona. That's the game we are trying to digest. We're trying to go through the analysis of it before we get down to the predictions. But thank you so much, Pedri, for joining us. Please like the podcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel. Can you give a shout out to my friend Lick Myers? Lick Myers? Is it Myers? Okay. Hi, Lick Myers. If that's how you pronounce the name, apologies if I've mispronounced the name. He's in school. Okay. Wish him the best of luck in school. So, I was saying, I mean, that's what the reports indicated, that in a home accident, Cole Palmer had broken his toe. But what kind of player? What isn't that vampire kind of healing style, really? To break a toe and then suddenly you're out for what? Less than a week? Because you only missed the weekend fixture, per se. I mean, last time I checked, which I'm trying to recall a player who had broken his toe. I think it was Lisandro Martinez at Manchester United. And he spent out for a period of a month or so. So I'm not inclined to believe that he'd actually broken his toe. I'm starting to think he had a bad sort of nasty knock, but it did not break. Or he sort of had a tweak of the toe, whichever the case was, but it wasn't actually broken. So because that sort of speedy recovery, I mean, wouldn't the world be? So many players would be at his doorstep to ask what kind of medication he used to, heal that fast. But it is a possibility that he makes the squad, or if not, at least we could see him over the weekend when they entertain Arsenal. So, in other words, like I was saying, you say 80 miles. As well, he's in school. Okay. Like I was saying, we do not know what kind of Chelsea is going to show up. Is it the electric, very effective Chelsea side that can trouble any opponent, or is it going to be the lackluster kind of Chelsea? The kind of Chelsea, is it going to be the kind of Chelsea that we saw beat up against Tottenham Hotspur by 1-0, or we're going to see a kind of Chelsea that nearly lost a game against Wolverhampton Wanderers in the fourth round of the EFL Cup, when you remember they won that game by 4-3. Jamie Gittens being the goal scorer. Oh, he's your brother. Okay. Please request your brother to come and join the Football Tribe UG community, to subscribe to the channel. But thank you so much, Pedri. Much greetings to your brother, 80 Myers there. So, my prediction, I'm going to go 3-1 Barcelona. I'm going to go 3-1 Barcelona. Because I feel, now, again, Barcelona equally have their issues. That's why a part of me wants to set even 3-2, because Barcelona are capable of conceding that. In any case, their last game in the UEFA Champions League against Club Brugge in a 3-3 draw is evidence to that. That's why I've told you guys, I have zero confidence in that Barcelona defense, but it's what they do in midfield and going forward that will make the difference. Now, and this is a big if Lamine Yamal does start in this game and he sort of has a good day in office, I get the feeling that Chelsea are going to be so pinned back, But also, before we get to that, let's not forget, Chelsea is one of the teams that has a good record against Barcelona. It's one of those teams that has a good record against Barcelona. But also, Spanish teams tend to struggle when they meet off with English Premier League teams. So, for example, we know that in a club friendly in 2019, Chelsea beat up against Barcelona by 2-1, while in the UEFA Champions League back in 2018, Barcelona beat up against Chelsea by 3-0. That was at the Camp Nou, while the reverse fixture ended in a 1-1 draw. When you wind things further back in 2012, that is when Chelsea won their first UEFA Champions League title. There was a 2-all draw in a Camp Nou, and then a 1-0 victory for Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and then a 1-all draw in 2009 between Chelsea and Barcelona, and a goalless draw away in Spain. So you can see that over the years, it's been a sport of fine margins. Both teams have only won once against each other in as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned, with Barcelona winning in 2018 and Chelsea winning in 2012. All the other games have ended in draws between the two sides. Wow. Does that make me shift my mind to a 2-all draw? I mean, it's also a possibility, but I'm going to go Barcelona to win 3-2. Yep, that's my final prediction. Barcelona to win 3-2. Guys, do let me know what your own predictions are in as far as that game is concerned. So, but otherwise, thank you so much for contributing to the discussion, for contributing to the debate as of this beautiful morning. So, anyways, here's the full run of fixtures in as far as today's engagements are concerned in the UEFA Champions League. Ajax will be up against Benfica. That's at 8:45 p.m. as well as Galatasaray up against Union Saint-Gilloise there. And then at 11 p.m., Juventus make the trip to Bordeaux Gilmot. Borussia Dortmund will be up against Villarreal. Borussia Dortmund on the back of a 3-all draw in the weekend there. And then Manchester City are going to be up against Bayer Leverkusen, while Olympique Marseille will take on Newcastle, and then Napoli will be up against Qarabag, and Slavia Praha will take on Athletic Bilbao. I don't know if there's been any manager that has been as poor in the UEFA Champions League as Antonio Conte in as far as first-class managers or top managers are concerned. The other day, I was watching a podcast and somebody mentioned something so true and very significant, that Antonio Conte is for some reason a very chaotic manager. Usually, if you want to win a major title, usually the league title, you summon him, he will come and win you the league title, but then the subsequent season, you hear all sorts of chaos within the ranks of the team. It happened at Chelsea, it happened at Inter Milan, it's happened at Napoli, and it happened at Tottenham Hotspurs. Of course, he never guided them to a league title. But I don't know, he has that aura to him or on him that sort of, I don't want to say messes things up, but he has that aura on him that is a catalyst for chaos in teams, and we've had this numerous times. I don't know if Pedro is still with us. I wanted to ask him something to do with the reports that we are getting from Real Madrid regarding the dressing room being sort of fed up of Xabi Alonso, or whether it's just a PR, and things like that. But so that's the run of fixtures that you will get in as far as today's UEFA Champions League games are concerned. Now, the other game I want us to look at is Manchester City against Bayer Leverkusen. Of course, I do not think we have any known head-to-head kind of fixtures, but between the two sides. But we know for a fact that Manchester City are returned to action on the back of a 2-1 loss to Newcastle, prior to which they had beaten up against Liverpool and Borussia Dortmund by 3-0 and 4-1 respectively in the Premier League and in the UEFA Champions League respectively. And in as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned, I think Man City, who are going to play their second consecutive game at home, have built themselves that reputation good enough to warrant that they will win this game. I think Bayer Leverkusen could sort of, I get the feeling they're going to expose themselves. They've been a very, very good team, by the way, ever since they had the swap of managers, letting go of Erik ten Hag quite early on in the season. But Robert Andrici will be out through suspension. Edmond Tapsoba will also be out due to having accumulated 5 yellow cards. Then Exquel Palacios has a groin injury. Axo Tepe has a hamstring injury. Excuse me. Lucas Vasquez has a muscular injury, while Lodri and Mateo Kovacic will be the only absentees for Manchester City. I do expect some changes in how Manchester City could set up for this one. Of course, Gianluigi Donnarumma retaining his position in goal. Matthias Nunes, maybe you get to see George Stones alongside Joshko Vardiol instead of Ruben Diaz. Could be rested. Nico O'Reilly maybe comes back. Atijen Reinders did not start against Newcastle. Maybe he gets to start this one alongside Nico Gonzalez and Phil Foden. Brought Erling Haaland expected to lead the lines. Do we get to see Omar Mamouche starting this game on one side and Jeremy Doku, or do we get to see Savinho and Doku alongside Brad Erling Haaland? Any of those things is capable of happening. On the side of Bayer Leverkusen, but before we get to Bayer Leverkusen, somebody has a comment for us. This is Shayla. Oh, Shalendra. Hi, how are you? I hope Barcelona do not buy referees against Chelsea. I think we've all seen the reports claiming that Barcelona, I think, had paid up to a fee of about 7 million euros to the vice president of referees, which Florentino Perez, the Real Madrid president, found very, very questionable. That those monies having been paid over a period of 17 years, which, according to Florentino Perez, was the most successful period in Barcelona's history. So, I mean, I do not want to allude to anything. Cizan says, Cizan EL71 says, hi, Black Bear. Hi to you too. How are you doing? Good to have you on the broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if you're new here. So really, let's hope that it won't be the case that that referees will handle the game really, really well to the expectations of us all, in as far as protecting the integrity of the game and its authenticity. But on the side of Bayer Leverkusen, expect to see Mark Flaken in goal, Joel Quensha in that back line, Loic Bed, Joanil Belosini, Alex Garcia, Jonas Hoffman, Alex Grimaldo, then Malik Tilleman, Ernest Poku, and then Patrick Schick. There. Do expect those to see some of those figures to be up against Manchester City, but I think at the end of the night, Manchester City will be too strong for this Bayer Leverkusen side, and I'm going for a 3-1 win for Manchester City. There. For my prediction, I think Manchester City will win that midfield battle if Nico Gonzalez does start alongside Jan Reinders and Phil Foden. I think they could turn out to be too good for them for Bayer Leverkusen to handle. Then Newcastle have had a bit of some brilliant performances in as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned. I think they only lost to Barcelona on match day 1, and ever since then they've not looked back. They've been winning game after game. They've been quite impressive in as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned. And for the first time this season, in as far as the Premier League is concerned, we saw a semblance of their UEFA Champions League performance manifest itself in the Premier League when they beat up against Manchester City over the weekend by 2-1. Those with a brace for Harvey Barnes guiding them to that victory. Realist Ruben Diaz scored what turned out to be a mere consolation for Manchester City. So they get to face off with an Olympic Marseille side who are very, very good, must I add, but they've sort of been a bit inconsistent. But in as far as the team is concerned, Olympic Marseille, they do have those players that are really, really capable of hurting any opponent, including Mason Greenwood, who He's one of the most on-form players in as far as Europe is concerned at the moment. But these two sides have met before met before in 2004 in the Europe in the UEFA Cup, predominantly referred to also known as the Europa League, and Olympic Marseille beat up against Newcastle. Excuse me, by 2 goals to nil during their visit to France, whereas the reverse fixture had ended in a goalless draw. I do not expect a Newcastle to have much changes in regards to the team that started over the weekend that beat up against Manchester City, particularly when you consider things. But we do expect Dan Burn, who missed the weekend game through suspension, given the red card he had, I think, received during the game against Brentford for Newcastle. We do expect him to return at left back. Fabian Schär alongside Malik Theo with Nick Pope in goal. Emil Kraft could be chipped in, or Kieran Trippier. That's if he's not out through injury, because Newcastle do have themselves a couple of injuries. Yeah, Kieran Trippier is out with the hamstring. Antonio Gordon struggles with a thigh injury. William Osula has an ankle issue. Harrison Ashby has a thigh injury, whereas Yohan Wissa struggles with a knee. Then, so when you look at their midfield, they do have that sort of midfield trio of Jolinton, Bruno Guimaraes, and Sandro Tonali. They're very athletic, they're very physical, they're very aggressive, particularly Jolinton. I was reading comments of how Ed Howe is asking English referees or Premier League referees to try and help protect Jolinton because he thinks he gets battered a lot. Now, for a team that usually gets away with a lot physically, and please take my prejudice that comes with this, perhaps having watched a number of Arsenal games against Newcastle, and I've thought to myself, wow, how did they get away with all that? And Jolinton being a key part of that. I do not think that he needs any favors from the referees. He's simply getting what he gives at some point in this game. So for me, I have no sympathy for that. If you want to play a physical game, then do not complain when it's brought to you, onto you. Then Harvey Barnes, Nick Voltmada, and Anthony Elanga. Now, the manager in charge of Olympic Marseille on the other side, in Roberto Di Zerbi, knows one too well these English sides, having managed Brighton and played against them, so he knows practically what to expect among these teams. But on the side of Olympic Marseille, expect to see, like I said, Igor Paxiao. I remember teams fought for his signature from Ajax during the course of the summer. Expect to see Angel Gomez, a very, very good player. Mason Greenwood, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang leading the lines there. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, formerly at Tottenham Hotspur. Arthur Vamarin in that midfield. Then Timothy Weah. I don't know why Timothy Weah is being played, could be played at right back, but it is the game of football. Leonardo Beleldi, Benjamin Pavard, and Emerson, with Geronimo Rulli in the goal there for Olympic Marseille. So expect a very, very beautiful game of football, one that could end in a 2-2 draw, in my opinion. I do expect goals to be scored in that game, so I'm going for a 2-2 draw kind of prediction in that one game. Napoli could struggle against Karabakh. Napoli have sort of struggled their way through the UEFA Champions League this season. Really, they continue to perform well in as far as the Italian Serie A is concerned, and let's wait to see what else they will be made good of. Of course, the UEFA Champions League will continue on Wednesday, but we'll get to look at the Wednesday games when that time comes. That will be tomorrow morning, hopefully. And then in regards to our late night broadcast, we do expect to come at around 11 or 11:30 p.m. Around that period. We will come live during the course of the Chelsea-Barcelona game, if the circumstances permit us, or we could come at half time. That's when we could go live and then do a watch along for the second half. Pretty much almost like we did for the Man United game on Monday Night Football. Speaking of Monday Night Football, yesterday Manchester United were in action against Everton, and unfortunately for them, they lost that game by a goal to nil. That goal scored by Harvey Barnes. Sorry, that goal scored by Keenan Drisbury Hall in the 29th minute. What a spectacular strike that was. Beautiful, beautiful goal. Idris Kanagay getting himself into an altercation with his teammates, particularly Michael Keane, before he's sort of offended off or before it's broken up by Jordan Pickford, the team captain there. So, I mean, I spoke about this last night, and it's not uncommon that players of the same team, get to disagree and things like that. And whereas I had no issues with the red card in itself, because I thought it was stupid of Idris Kanagay to take his disagreement that far with Michael Keane, for which he since apologized to his teammates, to the club fans, to Michael Keane, in a social media post, that's not his, known behavior or character. The referee, I mean, this is between two teammates, I understand he had to break it up. I understand the rules suggest that when you put your hand in the face of a player, you ought to be sent off. And that's where he formed his basis of judgment. But they're teammates. They're teammates. This is not against an opponent, Again, was the referee applying the rules to the letter of the law, or should his common sense have come into play? Because after the game, I've had the opportunity to think of it more, and I'm thinking to myself, brothers fight. How about teammates? We've seen teammates fight in training, either because somebody had used the hard tackle against their teammate, or I don't know if they said something which was meant for a joke and it did not come off well. Whatever the case happens, teammates fight all the time, on and off the pitch. When I say off the pitch, I mean in training sessions. When I say on the pitch, I mean during a game day. We've seen players exchange abuses, insults, For example, when they disagree, you should have played the ball here, you're not passing to me, those kinds of things. They do happen. They do happen. As unfortunate as you may want to think about them or of them, they do happen. More often than not, they do happen. And I'd want to think that maybe the referee could have handled the situation a lot more, because it was Tony Harrington. I think he could have sort of, broken up the thing, spoken to these players, issued a yellow card to Idris Kanagay and carried the game on. But his decision may have turned out to be a blessing in disguise for Everton, because those 10 players literally fought for each other. Every player played twice, doubled their own effort. Vitaly Myakalenko, James Tarkowski, Michael Keane, he quickly shoved that in the basket. We had an early for substitution for Seamus Coleman coming on for O'Brien. And in that midfield, James Garner, and then Keenan Drisbury Hall, Jack Grealish, what a performance. Thornberry are leading the lines up, really, really had a good game in terms of how they played collectively as a team, I thought they really, really competed well. I thought they created good scoring opportunities. I thought they fought for 50-50s. They tried as often as possible to win the ball back high up the pitch. And in some cases, they got that right. Sometimes they broke through the lines. And Manchester United sort of struggled with their panicky mode, because once Everton are down to 10 men and they double their efforts and get that leading goal in the 29th minute, Man United sort of go into panic mode to try and get back an equalizer to restore parity in that game as quickly as possible, which caused them to make costly mistakes. They missed, some chances. One falling to Patrick Togu. That was in the first half. In the second half, you had Bruno Fernandes, Brian Mbomo, Mason Mount missed chances, but also you had Jordan Pickford put on the man of the match kind of performance. He made save after save. There's one strong hand that he puts to Bruno Fernandes' ball. He was really, really quite brilliant because Man United had a total of 25 shots on goal. Unfortunately for them, only 6 were on target. Everton had 3, only 1 was on target. Corners were 9-1. 16, almost 70% ball possession for Man United compared to Everton's 30. All those statistics were bound to be in Man United's favor, bearing in mind that they were at home, 2, bearing in mind that they had the numerical advantage. And we saw quick substitutions in as far as at halftime, we saw the introduction of Mason Mount with Nusa Mazarui paving the way to have Amadou Diallo move to the wing back and have Mason Mount play as a 10 alongside Brandon Bomo with Joshua Zirkzee leading up the lines. We saw there was a brilliant header by Joshua Zirkzee that's word of the mark really. So Jordan Pickford made as many as 6 saves in that game really. So which was quite impressive. Everton needed all their players to stand up. To stand out once they went down to 10 men. And I thought they competed really, really well. They did that effectively well in as far as yesterday's game was concerned. So congratulations at Team Everton on that emphatic victory, which put them level on points with Manchester United in as far as the Premier League standings go. And also moved Everton to go above Liverpool, and Liverpool sort of moved further down to 12th place because Liverpool have a negative 2 goal difference. Although the team in 9th place, that's Tottenham Hotspur, and the team in 12th place all have 18 points. It's the goal difference. With Tottenham have a 6 goal difference. United and Everton, it's a 0-0 goal difference. It's a negative 2 for Liverpool, and that's what organizes the team squad in the manner in which it is organized. So really, quite impressive stuff there. Anyways, I just wanted to bring you in the this report. So here's the Idris Ganagay apology. I think he put this on his Instagram. He said, "I want to apologize first to my teammate Michael Keane. I take full responsibility for my reaction. I also apologize to my teammates, the staff, the fans, and the club. What happened does not reflect who I am or the values I stand for. Emotions can run high, but nothing justifies such behavior. I will make sure it never happens again." And it's a UTT. I think that's something to do with Everton. And I thought the apology was quite precise, was spot on. He apologizes to his teammate in Michael Keane. He does take responsibility of his emotions getting the better of him. He apologizes to the fans and the team as a whole, and the club who are really, really responsible for him. And I thought that was itself, because we're talking about a player who renewed his contract with the club in the summer recently. So, and he is a regular starter in that Everton side. Anyways, away from that, next weekend, Anthony Taylor has apparently been confirmed to be the matchday official or the central referee that will be in charge of Chelsea versus Arsenal at Stamford Bridge. Looks like we're going to have another referee sort of under a certain level of pressure when it comes to taking in charge of a big game. Not that he's not accustomed to it, but there's little room or margin for error. We saw, I think, Michael Oliver, for all the criticism, which was deservedly so, or rightly so, that was, leveled in his direction, in the aftermath of learning that he had been handed the North London derby to take charge of Arsenal and Tottenham. I thought he handled himself really, really well. If he can carry on with that sort of cool-headedness, of course, the game did not have so many fast kind of things there and there because Arsenal was so dominant. But I think he handled the game really, really well. If he does continue with that sort of trajectory, then we are bound to sort of see the Michael Oliver that we all thought was a very good referee, going back 3 or 4 years ago, and so if you can maintain the consistency, but because English referees also struggle with a lack of consistency in their own decisions or general officiation of the game. Then also quickly, this pertains the transfer of Anton Semenyo. Now, according to Sky Sport Germany's Florian Plettenberg, he says, understand Liverpool are seriously working on Anton Semenyo for the winter window and concrete talks have already taken place. Liverpool are fully aware of his release clause of around 70 million euros. Liverpool want him, but there is heavy competition with other top English sides involved. Bayern are currently not in the race. The 25-year-old versatile winger is under contract with Bournemouth until 2030. So again, this is a deal that we've spoken about before, having learned that he has a £65 million release clause in his contract that goes into effect in the first 2 weeks of the January transfer window, with £60 million being the guaranteed fees and £5 million being expected add-ons. And that same release clause is bound to go, a notch down to about £55 million if he is to stay with Bournemouth until the summer. So let's wait and see. But Liverpool are really, really interested. We know for a fact that Liverpool are looking to find sort of the right players to transition away from Mohamed Salah. And I'm not speaking that like in the, present continuous tense, but in the future sense of it, because we know that Mo Salah renewed his contract by 2 years, meaning at the end of the season, he will only have his 1 year left to his current contract. But also, let's not forget that the Mo Salah we've seen this season has been far from a shadow of himself from the one we watched last season. So there's a lot to look at in that realm or direction of things. So anyways, do let me know what your thoughts are, and I will be keeping you posted in regards to what the latest news and reports as we drive towards the January transfer window. We'll get to digest that or speak about that continuously. Also, so let's wait and see how things will turn out in the coming days. Otherwise, allow me wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Let's catch up later tonight. We will be doing some more content for a full review on what happened in the Arsenal Tottenham Hotspur game. Go to the channel under the video section. There's a video on that, but also in last night's broadcast at the tail end of it, we're going to discuss it. So do check that out, really. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure doing this with you. To all our new subscribers, we say welcome to the Football Tribe UG community. To all our usual suspects and semi-regular suspects and the non-regulars, we say thank you so much for loving and supporting what we do. Continue doing that. Continue watching our content. When you land on a video, please endeavor to watch it in its entirety and help contribute to our, our watch time that we are looking to improve. So, yeah. I hope you get to enjoy what we do. You can leave me a comment down in the comment section. I always respond to those comments. I always discuss those comments whenever I deem them worthy of discussing. We do engage with some of you. For example, the only law for me was was that we didn't keep a clean sheet. That was, Alex commenting about Arsenal's, 4-1 victory for Tottenham Hotspurs. So I always respond to those comments. So please do not forget or do not hesitate to leave us a comment down in the comment section in as far as this channel is concerned. Otherwise, be blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye for now.